a continent pulsing with youthful energy of fresh, new ideas. With 70% of its population younger than 30, Africa is literally a continent of the future. This youthful potential and talent promises to re-energize, revitalize, and remake our community of nations into the Africa we want. With an entrepreneurial spirit that drives economic growth, young Africans are shaping a new digital world.
We created this Energize Africa to make sure that the youth are empowered to be part and parcel of the whole transformation process of the continent. The first component is to make sure that these youth are really integrated in the public service, to make sure that the public service becomes agile, effective, and efficient in this digital world.
Entrepreneurs actually have a specific path, and people who want to become entrepreneur, and we will help them as well to become entrepreneur.
My name is Sept. I'm the founder and CEO of Stockfella, a social impacting company that focuses on changing the imbalances in our communities using the power of the collective.
I'm Tuka and I'm the CEO of Trims. So Trims is basically a beauty app. So on the app, you're going to find, for example, you see how your Uber works, where when you log onto the app, you see anybody that is closest to you, you check out their services, whichever one makes you happy, you book it.
Coming from Soweto, I have no clue who to ask in terms of what's a funder. Depending on your type of business, you need to talk to a certain type of funder. Now, asking a guy from Soweto to know all of that, it's quite a challenge.
It's important for me to have the right support so that my app can grow, and with my app growing, it's also going to help businesses grow, right?
Having such a great program in place for young Africans is such a great opportunity. I mean, I think about the challenges that I've faced, like access to market. How do I cross the borders to other parts of the continent? How do I take this great concept that we've developed and how do we expand it just beyond South Africa?
The Energize Africa program is very important and very helpful in the sense that for entrepreneurs like us, it exposes us to more collaborations, to more funding, to more support out there.
As a young person that has an idea, you want to start a business, you need a support structure. What incubation hubs and accelerator does is to create that support structure around the entrepreneur.
In countries where there are innovation hubs, we would upgrade it and make it stronger and make it responsive and improve the facilities that are there. And network these hubs so that knowledge is upgraded.
We know that most of the time the males are the one dominating, right? For me personally, I did this because I'm a mom of 4, right? And I have 3 girls and a son. I want to teach my girls that it's very important to be independent as well.
It's going to be a catalytic program, but it will make sure that the dots are linked. The coordination is a major aspect of the work of this Energize Africa. There are many initiatives, but how do you bring these initiatives together? How do you build knowledge? How do we scale it up to make sure that it meets the needs?
Success will be based on good partnership for good results, more people onboarded onto the program.
Having in the program such as AUTA, NetPed, Energize Africa, where you engage with other like-minded entrepreneurs, you engage with other leaders with other countries, and you're able to share your skill and your knowledge is a great opportunity,
It's a great tool for young Africans, so I would definitely encourage you to get involved. Young people, don't sleep on this.
Well, there you have it. Good morning. It's just absolutely glorious to be with all of you today in this wonderful time in the world. What amazing testimonies on that video. What amazing people who give life to the story that Africa is telling from north to south, from east to west. The energy is gaining momentum despite all the obstacles. So welcome to this global event as we join you live from New York City and greet you all across the African continent and the world. My name is Iman Rapeti. I am an award-winning South African broadcaster and author, and I'm absolutely delighted to be in your atmosphere today. You may be here because you are curious, you may want to know more, you may be here because you are already in business and you need to learn more about this ecosystem of support that is created with young African business in mind. Thank you so much. Bonjour et merci. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and shukran, sanbanani. Good morning and tena stilin. Thank you very much for being with us today. It's going to be a jam-packed program and every minute counts. So let me tell you some housekeeping before we dive right in. Firstly, our translation into French is available. And I would love to invite you all to tweet as much as you can. Please use the event hashtag Energize Africa. Please tag at NEPAD lowercase agency. So Energize Africa at NEPAD_agency. We are on all social media platforms. We have got so many of you beautiful people online. So let's make a noise outside. And before we get into the program, let us post. I know young people love to post. I haven't yet done my post for the day on our event, but I would love to invite you to do yours. So it could be something interesting in your space. Just take a picture of something where you are. It could be a picture. It could be the city you are joining us from. Anything interesting, even shoes. I love shoes. I'm going to give it a few seconds. Let's see how agile you are. And then just tweet it using the hashtag Energize Africa. Do tag us on at NEPAD_agency. And while you are doing that, let us know in the chat which country you are dialing in from. We want to make this a truly representative gathering. We want to know where you are from so that we can really have a view of just how much impact we're having in our launch event. Also, I want to invite you to keep posting your thoughts in the chat. I want us to also keep the energy going. As we welcome each speaker, I would love if you react in the chat. Since we can't hear your applause, you can send up an applause emoji or any other celebratory emoji to make them feel comfortable. All right, on that note, I'm going to say thank you again for being with us. We are so honored that you chose to share your time with us this morning. It's going to be an amazing gathering. So without further ado, let's get going. Are there any comments in the chat so far? Let me just see if anyone's telling us where they are from. Isaac, thank you very much for the fire emoji. I guess that's because you're enjoying my beautiful necklace from South Africa. Walid says, good. Okay, Walid is joining us from Egypt. He's the director of New Start for Medical Tourism. We also have Rishi Purusam in Mauritius. Yay, Rishi, lovely to see you. Happy to be in your midst. Your enthusiasm makes this event great. Isaac as well. And Achille from Paris, France. Wonderful. Please let us know where you're joining us from as well. Okay, so let's kick things off. I would love for you to give a warm virtual welcome to one of the custodians of the Energize Africa initiative. He is the wonderful and incredibly astute Amin Idris Adoum, and Amin is the Director for Program Delivery and Coordination at AUDA NEPAD. He is leading this drive to make sure that programs in infrastructure, in energy, environmental sustainability, and a host of other areas happen quickly, and that's what we want, a lot of energy. And he's going to bring that same energy to this program. Amin, good morning. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Iman, and good morning, everyone. Happy to be here with you. all of you from all over the world, of course, to energize Africa. To energize Africa and to energize ourselves, because energizing Africa actually is really about bringing back our energy and utilize our energy to move forward all together like one person. But making sure as well that we take into account our diversity, which is quite amazing. And at the same time, working towards our dreams to build this Africa we want. Actually, that's the motto of Energize Africa. So basically, Iman and friends as well, what Energize Africa stands for. Let me start by giving you, by putting the context here. Number one, as you all know, in Africa, 7 people out of 10 are less than 30. 7 people out of 10 are less than 30 years old. That means that most of the Africans living today in the continent, they are born around 1990. Most of those young women and men have gone through education and are now coming to the job market. That's number one. Number two, at the same time, the continent have really evolved. It has changed, not just in terms of demography, but also in terms of economy, in terms of its own sociology as well. And more people want, and we think that we need to drive our development ourselves. But we understand that this development cannot come actually without us being able to create jobs. And to be able to create jobs, we need really to invest into some very specific areas, like the entrepreneurship, of course, but also education, science, technology, innovation, and more importantly as well, by structuring our governance system through more investment in the public sector. So that's exactly what Energize Africa want to do. Number one, we want to, this program, bring together all our initiatives toward the youth, like the 100,000 MSMEs that aims right now at supporting the entrepreneurship in Africa by building capacity of entrepreneurs, facilitating access to finance, and at the same time easing their access to market, or providing as well social security. There is also SIFA, which is Skills Initiative in Africa, another program that we are running at NEPAD. This Skills Initiative for Africa is a huge program aiming at building capacity of the youth in tech, but also in entrepreneurship and in technical and vocational education. We have as well the TVET programs, TVET, technical and vocational education and training that we develop for agriculture, but also for industry, for technology. And at the same time, we are investing so much time, energy, and money in supporting young entrepreneurs in the agri-business, all across the continent. So we bring all those programs together. We put them under one umbrella called Energize Africa, which is very important, that help us as well to have economy of scale. It's extremely important. So we can invest our energy, our time, and the money of our partners and of our member states in a very meaningful and impactful manner. This is actually very important. Number two, through this program, Energize Africa, because we have brought together all our initiatives, we believe that we can support meaningfully and impactfully our public sector across the continent. So the idea here is that we help governments through providing support by posting young people, young people in kind of internship model for 12 to 18 months, all across the continent, based, of course, depending on the availability of the resources. But this is extremely important because that will help to bring energy, to bring innovation, and to help as well public sector to function better. As you know, you can have a world of entrepreneurs and a good entrepreneurship and market economy without strong public sector. Therefore, youth young women and young men need as well to go and work for the public sector. It's important because it's also fulfilling and it's going to help our economies to transform themselves. Thirdly, we believe that if you want to invest in public sector, if you want to invest in entrepreneurship, there are some basics that we need as well to address. One of the basics, of course, is how are we going to support all the people running, inventing, innovating. It's very important because we all talk about and speak about innovation. We speak about progress, right? But that needs to be supported. How are you going to support it? Right now, there are hundreds, otherwise thousands of incubators, accelerators, innovation hubs across the continent. So Oda and EPAT have decided through this Energize Africa program to support our incubators, our accelerators, and our innovation hubs. This is extremely important. By providing them the support, we believe that we can really help them right now actually to innovate faster and to innovate with impact and with purpose. This is very important. But then, once you have innovated, you need as well to make sure that your innovation, your invention actually can be commercialized, right? So that brings the issue of intellectual property. That's why through this program, we decided as well that we need to support all the Bureau of Brevet, all the offices in our countries and at the continental level that would help young inventors, young innovators, but not only young inventors and innovators, everyone who invent actually ready to get recognized. So to go through the how to say that, the Bureau de Brevet and to get the patent, at least in a much easier way. This is very important. And finally, last but not least, and this is as well key, once you have all those things put together, you need to find a way as well for those patents, to be put into the market so people can utilize them to create new businesses. But when they have created the new businesses, the new business need as well to be supported. This is where we have an initiative in Northern Nepal called KESN, Initiative for Africa, which is about industrial performance, which is about making sure that process actually work much better. This is where actually this initiative this program come as well into play. So all in all, this is what Energize Africa is about. We believe that we'll be able to mobilize between 10 to 15 billion dollars. But right now, we have, if we put together all our programs, it's about 250 to 300 million dollars that are already into play. And we are going to work together to make sure that we bring more resources, because Energizing Africa actually is priceless. Thank you, Iman.
I mean, thank you so much for that. And it really is about activating and converging all of these networks of opportunity in a way that can be practically accessible by everyone who is joining our conversation today. There are some questions already, but I will save that for a little bit later on. And maybe Amel will be able to get to some of those issues during the panel discussion. But again, a warm, warm welcome to everyone who is just logged onto the call right now. And I can see greetings from Umar in Ghana. I can see greetings from Peter Odote from Kenya, Mombasa, Kenya. Abinwi is joining us from Cameroon. It's just wonderful to see all of our, I would say, colleagues and friends really joining us from across the African continent, as well as as well as in Europe as well. Just feel really, really welcome. Unfortunately, you won't be able to chat to each other, but if you put things in the chat or in the Q&A function, we will definitely raise them with our panelists, and we want you to feel really, really welcome. So programs like Energize Africa can only ever be an idea until and unless it is supported by a vast network that is inside governments, inside civil society, and of course, across business and the market. So with that in mind, let's bring in a strategic partner for success, Mr. Sebastian Ashong Katai, who's the Group Head of Financial Institutions and International Organizations and Corporate and Investment Banking for EcoBank. And part of EcoBank's work focuses on creating relevant solutions to help build African businesses. So feel very, very welcome, Mr. Ashong Katai.
Thank you very much, Amin. and a very good morning to all the listeners who've joined us this morning. I am aware that the Chief Executive Officer isn't with us immediately this morning, but the African Youth Envoy, the African Union Youth Envoy, Ms. Chido Mpemba, Honorable Momoni Diala, the Pan-African Youth Union President, distinguished colleagues from AUDA, NEPAD, colleagues from EcoBank as well, and ladies and gentlemen, it's really a privilege and an exciting moment for me to join you all this morning. This is an important milestone in our quest to harness the full potential of Africa's youth as a driving force to transform our continent. You know, as Amin has said, the statistics all show that Africa has a young population. Over 41% of the population is under the age of 15. And we've been told by the United Nations that at least 12 million new jobs will have to be created each year to provide for the growing number of youths that enter our job market. So we do recognize the immense asset that we have in our youth and the imperative that they must be at the core of Africa's economic development. I think a lot of the ethos of today's conversation is to prepare ourselves. We must be ready for the youth of Africa. And at the same time, we must prepare the youth of Africa to be able to take their rightful place. The African Youth Charter Proclamation says that the youth are partners, assets, and a prerequisite for sustainable development and a prerequisite for peace and prosperity in Africa. And it also says that the youth have a unique contribution to make to the continent's present and future development. So as you know, EcoBank is a Pan-African bank, and we're really pleased to be a strategic partner to this initiative to energize Africa. Obviously, there are multiple activities that are taking place across the continent on multiple levels towards supporting the youth. But it's fantastic that we would have a single driving initiative that would really be able to harness the power of all these initiatives, rally and focus attention on the need to prepare and dedicate resources and align with government's policy initiatives on the youth. And as EcoBank being present in these communities, we feel on a daily basis the abundant energy and hopes for the future of this youth. And we know that, you know, Energize Africa is meant to be operating on a public sector level, on a private sector level, and also as a bridge between the two, with both public and private sector initiatives being driven. I'd just like to briefly refer to a study that was done by the Africa Leadership Institute together with the African Union Youth Envoy, and it was very focused on policies and the greater inclusion of African youth in public service and governance. And this study pointed out numerous excellent examples taking place in countries like Rwanda and in Nigeria that actually allowed the youth to come in and play a very impactful role in governance at various levels of governance without necessarily being politicians. So it creates a very attractive avenue for young people to come in and have an impact on public policy and public governance. Now, on the private sector side, we EcoBank ourselves have worked with the AU Development Agency and NEPAD. You heard Amin make reference to the 100,000 SMEs initiative, to which we were one of the key parties. And it was really a privilege for us to be able to work with the agency to be able to build capacity of about 450 young entrepreneurs through training programs for micro, small, and micro enterprises across Africa. So we work at that level We also work directly with governments in countries where we operate, because EcoBank is operating in 33 countries across Africa at the moment. In Togo, for example, we work with the government on their program called the Fonds d'Appui Initiative Économique des Jeunes, or FAIEJ, which provides guarantees and financing options for youth in business. So we look at the human element where we build capacity, and of course, we also look at the financial element where we help youth to be able to access credit. We also look at how to enable startups. As Amin had mentioned, it's important to be able to drive innovation and incubate companies through various initiatives that we have in the bank. And during the panel session, I hope to be able to speak a little bit more about some of the detail of these activities. So if you look at EcoBank itself, we have over 13,000 employees that do fall within this youth bracket. So we find ourselves dealing with the youth opportunity and the youth challenge on a daily basis. And as a result of that, we've built various programs within the institution itself that will drive youths to innovate and be able to have a strong voice within the company. So I would certainly like to invite all of you gathered here today to join hands. I have no doubt that we're all here today because of our strong interest in Africa's youth and our willingness to work together as both public and private sector to fully achieve the aims of this initiative. So with that, I'd like to end here and look forward to having a very exciting day of exchange with which we can fully galvanize and energize the youth of Africa. Thank you very much.
Sebastian, thank you so much for that. And when I hear about opportunities that provide, this catalytic avenue for good ideas and for collaboration, it really excites me because we have everything that we need. All we need to do is, as you mentioned in your opening there, and as Amin mentioned as well, is this opportunity for people to converge and bring all those things together so that young people in particular can access them. And there's so much excitement in the chat. Amil, when you come up to do your panel discussion later, you will see a lot of questions around some of the practical aspects of how people can get involved. And I'm loving all the excitement that I'm seeing online. Let me welcome a few more people. We have Ramatu from Ghana. We have Amin also from Ethiopia. You pardon my eyes, I'm squinting a little bit. Alex is also in Nairobi, Kenya. Dr. Lawrence Schaefer is here, and they've also got all kinds of solutions. Yuven is saying this is an amazing program, and we look up to better utilizing it effectively. There's a lot of Kenyans. There's Matthew Reen from Gatineau in Canada. It is just wonderful to see all of you and to be in your atmosphere. Okay, by the way, let me just tell you what's happening in the Twitterverse, okay? I did say, please tweet, take a picture in your environment and use the hashtag Energize Africa. I have seen 1 or 2 tweets. We have 170 or so in the meeting today. I think we might be able to give ourselves a challenge and do a little bit better. So show us where you're joining us from. Just take a picture of outside or what you're wearing or something on your desk and tweet using the hashtag Energize Africa. Amel, I'm going to look forward to seeing your tweet too. And just tell us what you're doing and why you're excited for the program. Please also feel free to tag NEPAD into it as well. I'll send you the hashtag and the attachment as well on that so that you can put us both into the picture. All right. So we have arranged an array of speakers to encourage and inspire you. And we are so happy that Chido Mpemba, our African Union Youth Envoy, who's also doing some duties at the UN just down the road from where we are, has been able to join us today. And Chido, as you know, was appointed by the chairperson of the African Union Commission as the youngest diplomat in the chairperson's cabinet to lead on youth affairs in the 55 member states as the AU's special envoy on youth. She's done a lot of work on climate change and banking. Her CV is long, so I'm not going to share all of it with you now. Chido, you have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's such an honor to be here, and I'm greeting you on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. Just to firstly acknowledge the presence of His Excellency Mr. Musa Faki Mohammed, our chairperson of the African Union Commission, acknowledging Ms. Nadas Thomas Bekele, the CEO of the African Union Development Agency, UDANEPID, Excellencies that are present, the champions of youth employment, my fellow youth leaders, a representative from EcoBank as well as from AfroZimbank. It's such an honor to be here. And, just to start off, this is so exciting because we need more platforms for young people. And this is exemplary of what, is to come for the youth. And in view of the UN and the Economic Commission for Africa's estimated need to create at least 12 million new jobs annually, we see the urgency to manage the unemployment crisis on the continent. And by 2050, 1 in 2 Africans will be under the age of 25, with close to 1 billion young people. And the overall population would have nearly doubled by then. And it is evident with this that this bulge will increase and the number of young people entering the job market will increase too. Furthermore, the African Development Bank reports that while about 10 to 12 million youth enter the workforce each year, only about 3.1 million jobs are created and leaving a vast number of youth unemployed. Yet the need to create new pathways for their livelihoods becomes illuminated. And these trends, including more that are not delve into now, highlight that young people are at the core to the objectives. Hence, their inclusion in economic development, prospects, and growth strategies should be a matter of priority. With the right opportunities, youth become a powerful source of growth and progress across the continent and even globally. And this zestful population possesses the imagination, the creative solutions, and the energy for progress. And these elements are crucial in Africa's ownership of the future. Now, as part of my mandate, youth employment and livelihoods is a strategic focus area for economic development across Africa, but this will need us holding hands and working together. And I believe that when you look at initiatives such as the Energize Africa, it becomes critical to address needs that are relevant to our youth today. Therefore, as we welcome the UDANEPID's recognition of the African youth as core elements, assets, and agents of its development strategy and prosperity, this initiative will not only put young people in the picture, but strategically position them as leaders championing solutions to livelihoods crisis. Harnessing the population of Africa's youth to transform the continent also entails utilization of their skills, coupled with equipping young people with necessary tools, platforms, and financial investments towards development prospects. And Africa is endured with the plethora of natural resources, yet ranks low on many development indicators. And this paradox can only be eliminated if we strategically position our youth as leaders in such sectors, cooperating them, ensuring that dedicated resource allocation, institutional enhancements, together with human capital developments. For economic growth, strengthening capacity should be conducted at all levels, nationally, regionally, through partnerships across priority sectors and thematic areas too. I believe that global multi-stakeholder collaboration may also enhance technology and innovation transfer, which is vital for developing our continental systems. For youth to engage in livelihoods creation as well, enabling environments must also exist. Hence, the issue of livelihoods and employment is a multi-sectoral and involves a diversity of partnerships, which the Energize Africa initiative will be mobilizing, and we're happy with this in this regard. A practical initiative such as Energized Africa recognizes the importance of expanding income opportunities for young people, but more so the vitality of youth as partners, hence our gathering at this pre-launch. Through creativity and entrepreneurship, young people have been at the forefront of notable innovations, utilizing the power of disruptive technology in smart agriculture, for example, in e-commerce, in food processing, tourism, circular economy, amongst many more. And many youth have turned these innovations into entrepreneurial ventures, an avenue to sustain livelihoods. What they need is support, financial and technical, which Energize aims to rally through programs, partnerships, and policy alignments. As we anticipate the future population growth together with the absorption of rates of job markets, let us also play Also pay particular attention to opportunities for green jobs and climate and sustainability too. I believe this space possesses vast opportunities for job creation, which we ought to invest in now. Now, in conclusion, we reiterate the strategic importance of this initiative to attain impactful results and increase youth livelihoods across the continent. It is impressive to see a diverse group of partners that have jumped onto this wagon to fast-track program deliverables for transformation. We hope to see an expansion of beneficiaries to include many more other sectors as we at this beginning, applauding the wonderful work that has been done by Uda Nepal. I urge us all to sustain the momentum, to go beyond this launch and make Energize Africa a reality for many young people hoping for a prosperous future towards the Africa that we all want, as enshrined by Agenda 2063. Merci beaucoup, asante sane, obrigade. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to the physical launch this afternoon.
Cheetah, thank you so much for that. And we are looking forward to seeing you in the flesh. Isn't it wonderful that we have the privilege to be in an environment where we can be face to face? Before I let you go, though, you know, we focus so much, Cheetah, on the practicalities of work as young entrepreneurs, especially African entrepreneurs. We live in a hustle culture. We live in a 24/7, got to keep working culture. We don't talk enough. And we, just as I mentioned, really, we don't talk enough about the self-care and the leaning in on other people for support. Maybe just share just a little bit on that aspect, because it is very much an intrinsic part of our entrepreneurial journey.
That is very, very true and very important, I believe. And I believe also in intergenerational co-leadership and co-designing. We also need to learn in terms of when it comes to entrepreneurship from those that have also walked that journey. So therefore, it's important that as we do so, that we harness on intergenerational dialogues, intergenerational co-leadership. And above all, let's not forget to have fun whilst we're doing so, especially as the young people. When you look at entrepreneurship, we're in this together. Let us go to those that have gone before us. Let us have fun in the process. And when we make mistakes, let us realize that we can always continue ship to where we'd like to go and achieve for the Africa that's for us.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. And I really urge everyone who is on that journey. It's not easy and you've got to be bold. And that's why an opportunity that we're like the one we're sharing with you today is so important, because often we're not sure how to navigate a space in which there seems to be endless opportunities that we can't access. So this platform in a way is, you know, creating this convergence of all of the things that you would need, from funding to support to mentorship, to the protection of your IP even, which is such a huge, you know, which is such a huge issue, especially when you're innovating and creating. So we're hoping that you're able to activate it and use it to your advantage as we learn more about how it functions. So Selaman, thank you very much for your picture. I don't know if you guys are watching what's happening on Twitter, but people are posting where they are, and it is beautiful. So thank you very much for that. We have some lovely pictures from CPA, Bungie. Let's see, I've got some more coming through. Oh, Mutahi, what an awesome picture. This is a beautiful view of Nairobi. Go and check out the hashtag Energize Africa. There are a couple of tweets coming through. Please tweet, guys. Let everyone else know what's happening in the room. And more people joining us from around the world. Botswana we have on the line. My very own beloved Johannesburg is also on the line. So it's wonderful to see everyone in the room today. Okay, so let's move on to how we change the game in Africa. And this is the theme of our next panel. And we chose a formidable array of speakers from across the African continent to share some insights with you. And they will be introduced to you by our moderator, Ms. Amil Saidani, who is the CEO of Tunisian Startups. Now, Amil is living the life that many of you in the room are living, actually. She's also an entrepreneur, and she believes in building an ecosystem of support for people who are not quite sure how to navigate, as I was sharing just now. And she's also a digital transformation expert. She is the president of Tunisian Startups, and this is such an important organization because it gives a voice to Tunisian startups. She's also the founder of Better Cube, a venture builder in fintech and mobility solutions, and a range of different things. Amel, I'm so pleased to introduce you this morning, and I can't wait to hear your discussion. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Iman. So I've been listening to the distinguished speakers since early. I can't be more excited to be part of this conversation. And I'm so in love with the name of the initiative. It's at Energize Africa, because I totally agree that we have all the ingredients for success. It's just about connecting them, orchestrating them. And then these keywords, I've been hearing this since earlier: catalyze, activate, energize. So this is exactly what we need, because it's all there, it's all in us. And it's really about, I really love to see this platform giving a voice to the youth of Africa, to contribute to design a new narrative for Africa, because very often the people who are in charge, the people who are in the government, don't know, they cannot imagine how the youth envisages actually their own future. So having them contribute in co-designing, in designing a new narrative for Africa is actually essential to secure a future that our African youth identifies with and wants to live for themselves. So I'm so happy to dig into this conversation for the coming half an hour, or actually 29 minutes left. So fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a speedy conversation with amazing panelists today. So we have please join me in welcoming Soumaya Zadeh joining from Tunisia. So Soumaya is from representing an organization called the Youth Consortium. And I like the way the Youth Consortium is defined. She will tell us more later on about the Youth Consortium, but it's actually a coalition of individuals and organizations with a futuristic mindset of collaborating, she says. So I would define Soumaya as a futurist, and who is probably the right type of profile who can design a future scenario for Africa. We will know more, listen more to Soumaya in a few. Tell us about the Youth Consortium. We're also privileged to have today Damilola Akinyele, Executive Director of Princeton in Africa, who is actually an international training, development, education professional, who will be suggesting an innovative approach to solve one of the massive challenges of Africa, which is the education of its youth. We will have also Dr. Bright Gameli, who is an entrepreneur, a CTO of Xetova, a data science cybersecurity collective, and who will tell us more about how data can solve African problems. So if you, to my distinguished panelists, if you don't mind opening your cameras, if you haven't already, just for us to see your faces and interact with you properly. Cool. So let's get. Oh, I can see you. Fantastic. Cool. So maybe we just start with every one of you sharing with us what you do, a little bit, a quick description of your organization and why you do what you do. So Soumaya.
Thank you so much, Amal, and thank you for everybody and this great opportunity to be here today. I like the energy that you showed, Amal. It's really energized for everybody. So as you mentioned that I am a co-partner of the Youth Consortium, as I call it always, it's baby for this year, as I was and I am part of many other networks that work for and with youth. So the Youth Consortium is a collaboration between individuals and organizations based in many countries in Africa, and our objective is to support youth to build the capacities to push them to realize their dreams and realize also the Agenda 2063 and Agenda 2030 for sustainable development. Thank you.
Fantastic. We'll go back to the why in a few. Damilola, tell us about yourself, about your organization.
Hi, Amal. Good morning here from New York, and good morning, good afternoon to anyone who's joining us from outside of the US. My name is Damilola Akinyele. I'm Executive Director at Princeton in Africa. Princeton in Africa is a nonprofit affiliate of Princeton University, and we match talented young professionals with host organizations across the African continent. I think that there's a big challenge when we think of democracy and good governance. Some of the big challenges always come up to good leadership and good institutions. So that's the why of our organizations. We match good people so that they can contribute to some of the most impactful organizations on the African continent. We've been doing this for the last 23 years. We work in 36 African countries, and we've placed nearly 700 fellows in those African countries. We find that it's been a gift for fellows to go on the African continent, interact on the continent, build relationships, and then contribute their skills, knowledge, and technical expertise to those organizations. We're doing something exciting this year. I'll talk a little bit about that as we get into the panel, but we are opening up the program to Africa fellows who have been educated on the African continent. They reside on the African continent. They will have an opportunity to be matched for a one-year service placement with those organizations that we work with on the African continent.
Fantastic. Thank you, Damilola, for being such an amazing connector, because this is one of the ingredients of the success of the continent, to connect the dots, actually, because talent is there and ideas are there. It's just about bringing these resources and capacities together to create magic. Bright, to you.
Yeah. Hi, greetings from Nairobi, Kenya. So I'm Ghanaian by origin, but I've been living in Nairobi for the past 20 years, in and out. I work for a company called Zetova as a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, where we make data make sense. Everything we're doing right now, this conversation, all the tweets, everything is data. Data is everywhere, it's available everywhere, but nobody knows how to make sense of it. So we take data, crunch it up, and be able to actually make it make sense to executives, to anybody in an organization, to make better, faster decisions. But if you Google my name, all you'll find out a lot of things about cybersecurity. That is something a lot of people, even the Kenyans who are in here, will know me for. I love to be able to just change the game, bring game changing when it comes to cybersecurity initiatives. And I run that with a collective called Africa Hack On, where we teach people about cybersecurity and how to become engineers and change lives. Recently, the best thing I think I've done in the last 2 weeks was I trained a medical doctor to become a cybersecurity engineer. Wow. It can happen. Anybody can change. So looking forward to this conversation and see how we can actually contribute. Thank you.
Amazing. So to everyone who wants to get inspired about how to get involved, how to contribute to change, let's dive into the conversation and understand how the African youth is contributing to changing the game from the public sector perspective. So back to you, Sumaya. You work a lot with the public sector. Public sector is very often associated in our countries with let's say, not the most agile component of the economy, as very often considered as an inhibitor of growth, even though our countries are actually designed, or every country in the world is actually designed to be catalyzed or can be catalyzed by the public sector. So how do you see the role of public sector, and how is the Youth Consortium contributing to supporting the public sector into catalyzing how the economy and job creation and solving the problems of Africa? Maybe just actually connecting from the office of the Minister of Economy and Planning, just to tell you how important this collaboration between public sector and private sector and civil society is for our countries and for our continent. We're here working on a joint initiative that is allowing Tunisia to co-develop a strategy that is based on innovation. It's a crowdsourced initiative where the entrepreneurs of Tunisia are contributing actively to integrate elements of a new vision, a new disruptive vision for Tunisia, and collaborating closely with the government. So, Sumaya, tell us more.
Thank you so much. Actually, these are great questions to reply and share our experiences. And as both of us, we come from the same country, so we have a better vision about what is going on and what went, especially after the revolution. So we all know that the public administration play an essential role and central role in projects and aim in developing human capital, modernizing labor markets, in promoting social inclusion. In our country, Tunisia, even though progress has been made in many sectors, the economic transition has not unfortunately kept pace. We are facing a lot of challenges with the strikes that are going on, with the slow improvement in the public sector, which automatically affected the economy. And according to the FDB and some of the research that with the FDB, the Tunisian government did, promises have been made towards the transformation of social, economic and public sectors. Even before the COVID-19, Tunisia's capacity for economic resilience have been drained by years of indecisive public policy making and growing protectionism. Public services were already deteriorating after an attempt to reshuffle the government. According to the World Bank, Tunisia has experienced a sharper decline in economic growth than most of the region peers, having entered this crisis with a slow growth and rising debt levels. GDP growth contracted by 8.8% in 2020, and employment increased from 15% prior to the pandemic to 17.8% by the end of the first quarter of 2021. Moreover, it continues to affect women, with the percentage of 24.9%, and young people aged between 15 and 24 years old with the percentage of 40.8. Let me just give some of the categories of binding constraints of the economic growth, and which is linked to the question that you just raised, and how the public services, the public sectors have an impact on to the economy. First of all, we face a lot of lack of effective institutions to ensure public sector accountability, the rule of law, checks and balances on power, resulting in weak protection of property rights, barrier to entry, and corruption. Second of all, the high fiscal and regulatory costs of employing co-workers, and we need solutions for that, as we are facing now a lot of strikes about increasing salaries to meet with the increasing life prices. So although social security programs and labor protections are intended to enhance the pay, benefits, and economic security of workers, many measures currently in place in Tunisia have been counterproductive in achieving these aims for all but the most fortunate Tunisian workers. This also affected the private sector, the foreign investment. All are linked together. I would like just to link it with the role of youth and the importance to include the inclusion of youth.
Absolutely, because it's very important for us, for youth to have a clarity about the assessment, the current situation, and engage into a frank conversation with the government. However, of course, it would be helpful to come with recommendations and solutions and approaches.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Yes. Many recommendations have been raised. Most of them is the inclusion of youth within governments, within public sector, to come all together and share their thoughts at the same table, but not only to be heard, but the implementation of those suggestions that are coming from the youth. I did some research, and I want just to mention two case studies, one in Rwanda and other in Nigeria, and I really encourage this kind of initiatives to push our governments to create such environment. In Rwanda, for example, Rwanda Public Sector Youth Internship Program, the internship program is part of the broad youth mainstreaming strategy that has been young people in Rwanda appointed as ministers, ambassadors, and CEOs and board members of state-owned enterprises. And in Nigeria, young people are special advisor or special assistant at federal and state levels of government. This is how we want youth to be included within the government, because we need their energy, we need their new ideas, their innovative solutions. If we can give some of the recommendations, and even the Youth Consortium are working on this area to get in touch with the government, with all the public sector, the private sector, the key stakeholders, to work all together to push youth into their circles and work in implementing what we have at the Agenda 2063, Agenda 2030. It's important to partner with them.
So it's a call for inclusion, a call for allowing youth to take a seat at the table and contribute with their vision of the world, vision of how the problems can be solved or can be assessed in the first place. Amazing. Thank you, Sumaya, for that. I'm inviting all attendees to drop us questions in the Q&A. First question is already for Damilola. So asking about if Princeton in Africa could partner with other organizations. But before we answer this question, we'd love to hear from you, Damilola, about what are the challenges you are trying to solve, especially when it comes to education, because education comes up as one of the key challenges of the continent. Do we have the right talent that the future of that building the future of the continent requires? Actually, how do we go about that? You are present in so many countries. What's your assessment of the diversity of these challenges, and what can we learn from your experience?
Amal, that's a very loaded question. I'll try
sorry
to answer to the.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. That is quite interesting. First off, I want to acknowledge that Africa has the youngest youth population in the world. And that's really significant because, you know, when we talk about youth, it's always in the context of, oh, we should include youth. That will be a nice idea. It's not just a nice idea. There is an imperative that youth must shape the conversation that's happening on the African continent. They must contribute to institutions across the African continent. There was a research that was done by the Mo Ibrahim Foundation in 2019, where you see that about 16 million youth are unemployed on the African continent. And that's a significant number because we are very frankly walking on a tipping point if we're not educating our youth. If they don't have access to opportunity, we already know that those things influence brain drain, and then people partaking in terrorism, and that, you know, influences the stability of the African continent. So it's important for us to really note that. I think what Princeton in Africa, what we're planning to accomplish with this program, and we've been in existence for 23 years, is matching young people with host organizations on the African continent where they can contribute their skills, their knowledge, and technical expertise to those organizations. So they're part of shaping the institutions that allow us to have democracy and good governance on the African continent. A lot of research, you know, there's a lot of conversation about this, of how the skills that our universities are training for on the African continent, it doesn't match what the business world is looking for. It doesn't match what our organizations are looking for. It doesn't match. So if it doesn't match, then we're not creating solutions. We're not creating opportunities that really allow us to move forward in our different countries. So how do we change that narrative a little bit? How do we make sure that people have access to the right type of skills, whether that's through an internship, whether that's through a fellowship program, whether that's through an innovative space where young people can really come together and gain the necessary skills and experience that allows us to transform the African continent. Many years ago, the first time so I'm Nigerian. I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, and then I moved to the US. The very first time that I really understood the power of the youth population on the African continent, I worked very briefly on the Young African Leaders Initiative, YALI, and I sat in a room with President Obama and just heard, how he saw the youth of the African continent. And, the potential of the youth of the African continent, the technology and the innovation and the progress that's happening, and that's happening through the youth on the African continent. And then it laid an imperative on me through my role to say, there is potential on the African continent. We can do wonderful things. Our African leaders need to see and recognize that the youth is the future of Africa. By 2035, we will still be the largest population on the African continent. So with Princeton in Africa, that's what we're aiming to do. So in 2023, we're piloting this program where now we're not just sending international talent to the African continent. We're now saying anyone who has been educated on the African continent can be a part of this opportunity. You can gain skills, you can gain experiences, and then after 1 year, you can move on in your different role and really contribute to the African continent. And then the problem of unemployment, right? By 2050, we will have the largest youth population. Hello, African leaders, largest youth population. How do we engage our youth? We do not have the right type of institutions and structures and opportunities to make sure that youth have access to opportunity. So it's imperative that we're having this conversation right now, and that institutions like Princeton in Africa exist that can give African youth an opportunity, but also what AU NEPED is trying to do to energize Africa, to work with governments, to work with nation states, to make sure that young people can have access to opportunity, but not just access to opportunity, but they're actually trained to do the work that they're being hired for.
Amazing, amazing. So African leaders, join the conversation, be prepared or start getting prepared if you are not for 2050, because Thumb says something big is happening there. So thank you very much, Damilola. Maybe, one of the opportunities we need to be prepared for, and that is growing every single day, is the opportunity also of entrepreneurship and startups. So the continent is noticing today a massive growth and exponential growth of startups being created every day. VC funding being attracted to Africa with over $4 billion US last year. Fantastic growth year over year of funds invested in startups. The potential is even bigger because the VC funding worldwide is around 250 billion. So we are still having just a little bit, a small chunk of what's possible there, even though the potential is amazing. The question, however, is how can this innovation contribute to solving African problems? Bright, tell us more about what's going on in the startup space in Africa, and how the startups, what do we need actually to be able to fulfill this potential of startups in Africa?
I mean, startups are coming up right now, and you've just given some really good numbers there, and it's showing the potential of what they can do. Now, VCs are trying to invest. There's people who are trying to actually come up with startups. And the thing is we're living in a time that is actually, people are getting very innovative. Why? Because right now, in the kind of digital evolution that we have entered right now, there's available resources, the available information, anybody can learn anything. I just told you that I've changed a medical doctor to become a cybersecurity engineer. And now he's applying that to what solutions he has been given, which was medical solutions, right? Now, he's not going to completely change, but he's already come up with a new service to say, hey, the program that I'm giving you, or the solution that I'm actually installing for you, is actually going to help you now to be secure. That has created an extra level of a job. We're looking at the insure tech, we're looking at ed tech, we're looking at the fintechs that have been blowing up and some of them are almost going IPO. And so the growth of talent and scaling the economy is going to happen because there's available resources, there's available tapping into this talent is going to change the economies in a very short time. Where we need to start looking is be able to see the inclusion of young Africans in being able to see that potential. Sometimes you find it very difficult for African leaders or African investors to put in their money into startups. It's becoming a very difficult thing. So we are always dependent on an outside of foreign, outside of the continent of Africa for investments. That should not be the way to go. I would love to see more Africans being able to invest. And that needs us to be able to show or prove that we actually know what we're doing, which we do know, and being able to show that potential that African startups should not be shy to be able to come up with what they have. I met my youngest mentee is an 18-year-old hacker. Now, we're not putting age to things anymore. Look, an 18-year-old just hacked Uber. He doesn't have certifications for anything. My 18-year-old hacked a hospital just because he wanted to put himself higher on the thing that calls the names out for him to be attended to earlier. Another one who's 19 is a programmer, and he programs in almost 5 programming languages. He came up with his own applications, but does not have the backing of anybody to be able to push him to be able to actually get that out. Look at him. He doesn't need money. All he needs is a push and a guidance for somebody to say, hey, this is the right way to go. So startups will come. We have to have a different definition of what startups will be like and what they're going to, how they're going to impact the ecosystem. And the youth are the people who have the power right now. And they're smarter. They're coming up with smart details to be able to do that. Where I am right now at Setova, we are using data science to even predict things that will happen before they happen. For example, we were able to predict vaccine expiration, if not distributed in a particular way, 6 months in advance. However, the person who was supposed to use it, if they don't use it properly, if they had not used it properly, they were going to have expired vaccines, and that's just waste. We'll be able to predict malaria before it actually outbreaks, all because the data is there. And this is something that we came up with because we had to sit down and think about the ways to be able to get this done. So there's quite a lot that is out there, and we just need to be able to believe in ourselves to actually bring it out without the fear of actually being suppressed. Yeah.
Amazing. So if you're not inspired yet, I don't know what it actually requires for you to be bold and take a seat at the table and really contribute, because I think Africa has a lot of talent, but also enough interesting problems to be solved. And this is and the problems are interesting enough, are big enough. The market is big enough, of course, with some challenges, barriers to entries here and there that we need to be aware of and solve. But I think we're ready to energize Africa, and I understand that our time is up and that we need to move to the next conversation. I'm really thrilled for then what's coming up with Energize Africa, and I thank you, Sumaya, Damilola, and Bright, for all the contributions and all the insights, all the energy. Really love you all and wish you a great event. And back to you, Iman.
Thank you so much, Shukran Amal. Listen, before you all go, please put in your contact details in the chat for your organizations so that some who are asking how they can get in touch can do that. There's lots of questions about really plugging and tapping into your network. But what I will say to everyone on the call, this is so exciting. And of course, it's only the tip of the iceberg. Everything else in terms of the programmatic work, in terms of the detail, is going to be available on the AUDA NEPAD website with the Energize Africa program. So if you want to know more, please feel free to go there. And I want to touch on something that actually some of us have really commented on, and I think Bright, you touched on it towards the end. When we consider the ages of people who are innovating on the continent, who are solving real problems, we're not talking about people in their 30s and 40s anymore. So when we say that Africa, that the youth are the future of the continent, that is true. But they are also the now of the continent. We have 455 million young people, 23% of the world's youth population between the ages of 15 and 34 on the continent now. So let's harness and catalyze that opportunity immediately. Thank you to all our panelists. I could listen to you for hours and hours because it is just incredible what you are doing and how you also just leading the way and pioneering for a lot of us to follow. So thank you so much for that. All right. So on that note, let us open the way for our chief champion of the Energize Africa program. And that's the CEO of AUDA NEPAD, Her Excellency, Mrs. Nados Bekele Thomas. And Mrs. Bekele Thomas brings decades of executive leadership experience, and she has most recently come from her terms in office as Senior Director of the Office of the Secretary General, in charge of the overall management of the Office of the Secretary General. She's a passionate believer in this program, years of experience in this field, and she's here to share with us why it is so important for us to really activate this program so that we can create the realization of the economic powerhouse that Africa is poised to be. Ms. Bekele Thomas, welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, my dear sister. And thanks, it's just so wonderful and inspiring to hear the young ones, with passion, with figures, with evidence, talking about why we should invest on youth. And it's very interesting because in any case, for all of us that are parents and mothers and grandmothers like me, if there is one thing that keeps us awake, is the fact that we are not doing enough to make sure that, the youthful energies are harnessed and become, productive asset of the socioeconomic transformation processes. It's very telling because, for us not to be able to consider, 60% of our population is damning. And we are asking ourselves why we are not developing. Yes, of course, we will not develop if we leave out 60% of the youthful energies, the ones that would transform, our economies. And therefore, I think it's very important that we deal with this matter. Were there programs? Yes, there are many programs. We've heard from the young ones, the initiatives that are here, there, all over, scattered, fragmented, but they're not impactful. And we need to find a platform where all these energies, where all these programs, where all these initiatives, where all these creative actions are put together, and we build on the knowledge and make sure we scale it up so that we cover the entire continent and make sure that we respond to the population that you mentioned, 455 million young ones. That is today's population, and tomorrow's population will be more. And the population will double anyway by 2050, and that would be 60% of the entire population that would double, which would mean 455 times 2, which is like, in billions that would be out there. It's not only that. If we do not take action today, then it would be a threat to our society. It will be really a threat to our society. These are, productive assets that we are squandering for nothing. Therefore, this program is meant to really see on how we can harness the potential of the young ones to make sure that they are part and parcel of the Africa we want, the process, the transformative process to reach at the goal that we have set for ourselves. And for me, it's a passion. It's, I sleep with it, I wake up with it. So, and with all of you young ones, with all the initiatives and with all the programs coming together, we can make it. And that's the first thing I say. And, when I look in my 40 years experience in development practice, what is missing is the fact that we are using the same thing over and over and over again. Of course, the response that would come is the same thing, okay? Or we demolish what we started and we restart again, and we are always at the same equilibrium. We do not build knowledge, and it's time that we build knowledge. It's time that we expand the scope of what we are doing. It's time that we focus on the youth. Because when we say the youth, it's not just one sector of the youth, it's a multi-sectoral approach that it requires. And therefore, our program deals with so many things. The first one is on how to rejuvenate, how to regenerate the public service. And I've been hearing, our eloquent speakers, especially, Damilola, talking about how we need to really modernize our public service. Yes, we need to modernize our public service to be able to respond to the digital mind of our young ones. We need to respond to make our public service to respond to the needs of the young ones, because it's not about health, it's not about education, it's not about, creating jobs, it's not about, it's everything, and all of the things at the same time. So it's a multi-sectoral approach. And that, approach led us to say, listen, why don't we really create a facility, a platform where we could map out all our creative minds, all these innovative minds, and try to integrate them in the public service so that they make the public service to be responsive to their needs. It's very critical, it's very important. We have many professionals, with PhDs, with masters, double masters, triple masters. I know because when we advertise for a job, there are people that would come with 2, 3 masters these days. It's not like us with 1 master's and you get what you want. And these are the ones that we're wasting. So why don't we retool them? Why don't we reskill them and put them to help the public service to be modernized, to be efficient, to be effective, to be agile, to be able to have that the 4th industrial revolution integrated within the processes of the administration. So that is the first one, and it's a big job, yes, I know, but we can do it because we have the supply and we have the demand. On the other hand, the public service is crying out for capacity, okay? And the public service is crying out for capacity that they're constrained because they cannot increase their wage bill. And therefore, creating that equilibrium between the supply and the demand will help us resolve the paradox. The second thing is we need to really have, like what all my young children just said before me, we need to create that facility that will enable, the creative minds to come out with some technologies that will be solutions to the development challenges that we have. We don't have to talk about, poverty. We really need to have solutions how to manage, and our prosperity, and how to be able to make sure that, we have the technology to solve the development challenges. All the development challenges can be solved, really with technology and using the business process and business models. They are very profitable. Even when you talk about social services, like for example, schools, this is really an investment where one should go, because in any case, the market is always guaranteed. There will be children going to the school, all the time. So, all the development challenges that we think we have could be really solutions, opportunities for the young ones. And therefore, creating that innovation hub is critical and very important. And in creating that innovation hub, we don't use the old systems of resolving development challenges, but the new systems using the digital tools to be able to respond to them. And innovation hubs, we are determined to create them in each and every country, because each and every country deserves a facility that will help the young ones to come and express their creative minds and their innovative minds and come out with technologies. When we do that, from the past up to now, what has been hindering the upscaling has always been the commercialization of technologies, because we don't have the intellectual property rights, we don't have the quality assurance system. So we have to create also that ecosystem that will help these young ones to come with technologies which they can commercialize and make billions, rather than having all the innovation ideas, zoom out and, they zoom in, but the values would be exponentially high. So, I think, this is for me, it's a passion, it's a must, it's an obligation, it's mandatory. Governments, ourselves, the private sector, the youth can come together and create these innovation labs and make sure that the ecosystem is built in there. Once that is done, we come to what, one of the young ones, I think Bright was talking about, is really the startups. The startups, MSMEs. we need to also make sure that these startups graduate, MSMEs graduate, and become, the big, companies that we see. But they have to be within the value chain. They have to be with the supply chain, because in doing that, the markets are assured, and the path from graduating from one to the other is really, really smooth and easy. And to do that, we need also a judicious mix of all the ingredients that a business, needs. And we, together with everybody, could put this together. The most important thing in this program is that we are not reinventing the wheel. Everything is there, scattered, fragmented. We will pull all these resources that are available and make sure that we review them, try to identify the gaps, fill in the gaps, and link the dots, and make sure that they're scaled up to cover the entire continent. Our young ones are ready. Are we ready as partners? Are we ready, governments? Are we ready, institutions? And I think the time has come, and we are ready. And with Energize Africa, we will certainly energize not only Africa, but the world, because we represent the majority in the world. And our young ones are really ready. They are rewired differently. They are genius. They create so many things. Even those that have never been to school are coming up with gadgets, applications that transform societies, communities, families. And we will just, have to harness all this and make sure that we apply them at a scale that is required. And it's so wonderful to hear the young ones. So wonderful to hear the young ones. And they energize us also. We are energized because they are our energy. And we will certainly energize Africa and the world. Thank you very much. Looking forward to this, to the implementation of our program. All of us together, join hand in hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I think, as you said, it's how do we join together? How do we collaborate? How do we activate and catalyze? What this platform is doing is to create a connective tissue between what exists in the space and bringing it together. There are so many questions and comments in the chat, which we won't be able to get to right now, but this is the first step in a longer journey that we want all of you who are in the room to be a part of. Go to the AUDA NEPAD site, check out the program on Energize Africa, see where you plug in, and let us get working. We will learn more as well in the afternoon session. It is going to be a collaborative journey, and a journey that we walk together. I know we've heard the African proverb a million times. If you want to go far, you have to go together. And we are going to go together. And we are going to get as far as we possibly can. On that note, we're going to round things off. We're coming towards the end. I want to invite Babajide Sodipo from Afrexim Bank to deliver his closing remarks. And Babajide Sodipo is the Senior Manager for the AU and the African Continental Free Trade Area Relations and Trade Policy, and puts a lot of effort and time into developing partners and making sure that there is sophisticated coordination that Mrs. Bekele Thomas was talking about that results in support for trade in large, medium, and small enterprises. We welcome you this morning. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Iman, for your very kind words. Let me start, of course, by acknowledging Her Excellency, Mrs. Nados Bekele Thomas, the CEO of the AUDA NEPAD agency. It's certainly our pleasure on behalf of the Africa Export-Import Bank to be able to deliver the closing remarks for what has been a really, if I might say, invigorating session this morning here in New York, but I suppose in the afternoon or early evening in the continent of Africa. I must say that, if anything, I have been struck by the energy and the passion of all the different speakers, the idealism and the optimism of the panelists and the experts that have spoken at different points in this morning's program. And I think it truly reflects the choice of the project name, which is about Energize Africa. And I truly believe that we will be able to carry this same energy towards the implementation of this project. And we certainly believe that it will prove to be a truly transformative African project at the end of the day. I think we have heard all the statistics about the role of youth in Africa, not just the role of youth, but the potential of the youth in Africa. It is the belief in that potential that has caused the Africa Export-Import Bank to partner with Outer NEPAD to truly and thoroughly support this initiative. So having said this, we'd like to thank all the people that have taken time to be part of this call. We will be having the launching event shortly. We'll certainly invite everyone to participate. So we certainly express our appreciation, and we thank you very much for participating. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sodipo. Appreciate those comments, and thank you very much for being a partner in the program. And finally, to deliver the vote of thanks is Ms. Katra Sambili, who is the AUDA NEPAD Special Assistant to the CEO. And Katra brings so much knowledge in institution building, in leadership development and public policy. And it's wonderful to be able to end this part of the program with a word from her. Katra.
Thank you, Iman. Thank you, Iman, for this opportunity. My job is really, it's such an incredible honor to have this opportunity to thank everyone for attending today's pre-launch ceremony for Energize Africa, Outer NEPAD's flagship initiative. We're so excited that we've rallied the best of the continent, from the diaspora to the continent itself, in execution of our Commander-in-Chief's vision to mobilize human, financial, and technical resources for Agenda 2063. We cannot realize the Africa we want by working individually. And so this morning's event is a testament to our capacity to collaborate with people in different sectors. We've heard from the financial sector, we've heard from tech, we've heard from public sector. It really takes each and every one of us to come together, to combine forces, because the work and the journey ahead is tremendous, but we are equal to the task. And so I wish to begin by thanking our visionary leader, Her Excellency, Madam Nados Bekele Thomas, who I have had the privilege to bear witness to her rallying the cause of the continent's youth. And 60% of the population, that's 6 in every 10, is a young person. And that person, all that stands between them and their destiny is an opportunity. And this Energize Africa flagship program seeks to democratize opportunities for youth. I wish to thank our director, Amin Adum, who gave an overview of how Outer NEPAD is working to funnel all the talent that lies across the continent and in the diaspora, with a view to realizing that future that we visualized in 2013 that will be made manifest by 2063. I want to thank Sebastian, Chido, Amel, Sumaya, Dr. Gameli Damilola, who I am in the room with, and Dr. Bright Maudor, Babajide, incredible men and women, truly, truly incredible men and women who have helped to launch this initiative on this day. I'm extremely privileged because we have visualized and now we are working towards realizing the Agenda 2063 and the Africa that we want. Looking forward to seeing those of you who are in New York physically in a matter of minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Iman.
Thank you so much, Katra, and thank you to everybody. I mean, the comments I'm reading on the chat, Janet says, wonderful launch event. Sinatemba says, what a wonderful session. As an African youth, I'm inspired and energized. The youth are truly ready. And there's so many others, just appreciating the energy of our gathering here today. Esther B. Kauma on Twitter says, all we need is support, involve us in new initiatives. And Esther, this is really the moment for that to happen. So again, just to invite you all to go and read up a bit more about the program, see how you can plug and play. The contacts are on there. We're about to end the session. So if there's numbers and contacts you want to do, just quickly grab that off the chat and you can reach out to our partner networks as well. I want to say thank you so much to everyone who logged on this morning. Thank you for the beautiful pictures. We will retweet and appreciate so much you joining us today. It was absolutely wonderful. I do want to say that if you would like to stay on for the official launch, which kicks off at 12:30 or about an hour from now, we would love for you to stay for that, because we're going to pivot to the second part. And we will have the face-to-face launch momentarily, well, at least an hour from now. So thank you so much, everyone. Just take care. Remember to look after yourself. Being an entrepreneur is not for the faint-hearted. You have to build that resilience. You have to look for the opportunity and you have to grab it when you find it. So this is that opportunity for you, and I invite you to really take it up and run with it. So thank you to all of you. Be blessed, stay safe, and we'll hopefully see you again soon and interact again soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Au revoir. Salam.
Africa, a continent pulsing with youthful energy of fresh, new ideas. With 70% of its population younger than 30, Africa is literally a continent of the future. This youthful potential and talent promises to re-energize, revitalize, and remake our community of nations into the Africa we want. With an entrepreneurial spirit that drives economic growth, young Africans are shaping a new digital world.
We created this Energize Africa to make sure that the youth are empowered to be part and parcel of the whole transformation process of the continent. The first component is to make sure that these youth are really integrated in the public service, to make sure that the public service becomes agile, effective, and efficient in this digital world.
Entrepreneurs actually have a specific path, and people who want to become entrepreneur, and we will help them as well to become entrepreneur.
My name is Sept. I'm the founder and CEO of Stockfella, a social impacting company that focuses on changing the imbalances in our communities using the power of the collective.
I'm Tuka and I'm the CEO of Trims. So Trims is basically a beauty app. So on the app, you're going to find, for example, you see how your Uber works, where when you log onto the app, you see anybody that is closest to you, you check out their services, whichever one makes you happy, you book it.
Coming from Soweto, I have no clue who to ask in terms of what's a funder. Depending on your type of business, you need to talk to a certain type of funder. Now, asking a guy from Soweto to know all of that, it's quite a challenge.
It's important for me to have the right support so that my app can grow, and with my app growing, it's also going to help businesses grow, right?
Having such a great program in place for young Africans is such a great opportunity. I mean, I think about the challenges that I've faced, like access to market. How do I cross the borders to other parts of the continent? How do I take this great concept that we've developed and how do we expand it just beyond South Africa?
The Energize Africa program is very important and very helpful in the sense that for entrepreneurs like us, it exposes us to more collaborations, to more funding, to more support out there.
As a young person that has an idea, you want to start a business, you need a support structure. What incubation hubs and accelerator does is to create that support structure around the entrepreneur.
In countries where there are innovation hubs, we would upgrade it and make it stronger and make it responsive and improve the facilities that are there and network these hubs so that knowledge is upgraded.
We know that most of the time the males are the one dominating, right? For me personally, I did this because I'm a mom of 4, right? And I have 3 girls and a son. I want to teach my girls that it's very important to be independent as well.
It's going to be a catalytic program, but it will make sure that the dots are linked. The coordination is a major aspect of the work of this Energize Africa. There are many initiatives, but how do you bring these initiatives together? How do you build knowledge? How do we scale it up to make sure that it meets the needs?
Success will be based on good partnership for good results, more people onboarded onto the program.
Having in the program such as AUTA, NetPed, Energize Africa, where you engage with other like-minded entrepreneurs, you engage with other leaders with other countries, and you're able to share your skill and your knowledge is a great opportunity,
It's a great tool for young African, so I would definitely encourage you to get involved. Young people, don't sleep on this.